Why commitment is dying. The rise of casual relationships and the decline of commitment. There was a time when relationships were built on commitment, trust, and long-term investment. But in the modern era, commitment is often seen as a burden rather than a goal. The rise of hookup culture has redefined intimacy, shifting the focus from deep emotional bonds to casual, short-term encounters. Apps like Tinder, Bumble, and Hinge have made it easier than ever to engage in fleeting interactions without any long-term expectations. This culture of instant gratification has reshaped the way people approach relationships. Many now prefer quick pleasure over deep connection. Instead of investing time in one person, they move from one casual encounter to the next, avoiding emotional vulnerability altogether. But here's the question: is this truly what people want? Or have we been conditioned to believe that casual relationships are the only way to navigate modern love? Fear of emotional vulnerability, the root of detachment. At the heart of hookup culture lies something deeper than just convenience. Fear. Fear of emotional exposure, fear of heartbreak, fear of being seen truly and fully by another person. In a world where rejection is just a swipe away, many have learned to detach before they can be hurt. People engage in short-lived, surface-level interactions because they believe it's safer. It's easier to keep things casual than to risk emotional pain. But the irony is that by avoiding vulnerability, many are left feeling more isolated than ever. The widespread normalization of detachment and emotional unavailability has made meaningful relationships rare. People say they don't want anything serious, but deep down, many crave genuine intimacy and connection. The problem? No one wants to admit it, because vulnerability is now seen as weakness. Social media's role in the death of commitment. Social media has glorified the image of having options. Scrolling through Instagram or TikTok, we're bombarded with images of beautiful, seemingly perfect people, leading us to believe that commitment is unnecessary. Why settle when there's always someone better out there? Influencers and celebrities promote a lifestyle of freedom, independence, and no attachments. Dating multiple people, keeping things casual, and avoiding commitment is painted as the ultimate modern experience. And so people mimic this behavior, thinking that avoiding commitment makes them powerful, in control, and untouchable. But here's the reality. Social media is a highlight reel, not real life. The fear of missing out, FOMO, keeps people chasing something that doesn't exist, an illusion of endless excitement and perfection. In the process, real, fulfilling relationships are discarded before they even have a chance to grow. The hidden emotional cost of hookup culture. Despite the mainstream portrayal of casual relationships as empowering, many people report feeling unfulfilled, disconnected, and even emotionally drained. Studies have shown that frequent casual encounters can lead to higher rates of depression, anxiety, and feelings of loneliness. Many begin to feel like just another option, easily replaceable, easily discarded. Emotional bonds are severed before they can truly form, leaving people feeling hollow. The cycle of casual relationships becomes addictive, but never truly satisfying. So, is this really liberation, or has hookup culture trapped people in a cycle of emotional emptiness? As modern love continues to shift toward detachment, the real question is, can we ever return to meaningful, lasting relationships? The rise of performative love. In a world where every moment is documented, filtered, and shared, relationships have become more than just personal connections. They have become performances. Social media has given people the ability to showcase their love lives to an audience, but at what cost? Couples are no longer just living in the moment, they are curating their relationships for public approval. The pressure to post anniversary pictures, cute date nights, and relationship milestones has turned love into a competition for likes, validation, and social status. But here's the paradox. Many of the most Picture-perfect relationships online are the most fragile behind the scenes. The need to prove happiness often replaces the actual experience of being happy. People craft the illusion of a perfect love story while silently struggling with insecurity, disconnection, and dissatisfaction. So the question is, are relationships still real, or are they just another form of entertainment? The perfect couple illusion and its impact on real love social media glorifies unrealistic expectations about love. The couples who get the most attention are those who appear flawless, always happy, always in love, always doing something exciting. But these snapshots don't tell the full story. Many people compare their real-life relationships to these curated, highly edited versions of love. They see influencers and celebrities sharing romantic vacations, extravagant gifts, and sweet messages, and wonder, why doesn't my relationship look like that? This creates unrealistic standards that real people and real love cannot always meet. The consequences? Unnecessary breakups. People walk away from good relationships because they don't feel as exciting as the ones they see online. Dissatisfaction. Instead of appreciating their partner for who they are, people feel like they're settling for less than what social media portrays. Insecurity. Constant comparison leads to feelings of inadequacy and fear that their love is not good enough. But real love is messy, imperfect, and unpredictable. The more people chase the illusion of perfection, the harder it becomes to accept love in its raw, unfiltered form. Validation over authentic connection. One of the biggest dangers of social media relationships is that many people begin to value public validation over private intimacy. Instead of focusing on how a relationship feels, they focus on how it looks to others. This leads to unhealthy patterns. Couples stage their moments for Instagram rather than enjoying them. Arguments and conflicts are ignored because admitting flaws doesn't fit the narrative. People stay in toxic relationships longer just to maintain the image of a happy couple. When relationships become performances for an audience, they lose their depth. Love stops being something shared between two people and instead becomes a product marketed to followers. At this point, we have to ask, are we loving for ourselves or for the approval of others? Escaping the social media love trap. So how do we break free from the toxic cycle of curated, performative relationships? Prioritize real connection over online validation. Stop focusing on how a relationship looks and start focusing on how it feels. Limit comparison. Understand that most people only share the best parts of their lives, not their struggles. Keep moments private. Some of the most meaningful experiences don't need an audience. Choose depth over aesthetics. A real connection is more valuable than any number of likes. Love wasn't meant to be a social media spectacle. It was meant to be felt, experienced, and lived, imperfectly but authentically. The real question is, can we still find genuine love in a world obsessed with appearances? Why we fear commitment, modern society, and the worship of independence. We live in an era where freedom is glorified above all else. The ability to choose, to walk away, to start over at any time, these are seen as the ultimate forms of power. But when it comes to relationships, this mindset has created a paradox. The more we chase unlimited freedom, the harder it becomes to commit. People today are more hesitant than ever to settle down. Not because they don't want love, but because they've been taught that commitment means giving up their independence. They fear that choosing one person means losing endless possibilities, that saying yes to love means saying no to personal growth, adventure, or self-discovery. But is this true? Is deep love really a threat to personal freedom? Or have we been conditioned to believe that commitment is a trap? FOMO and the illusion of better options. One of the biggest reasons people avoid serious relationships is FOMO, the fear of missing out. Dating apps, social media, and globalization have created the illusion that there's always someone better just around the corner. With a single swipe, people have access to hundreds, even thousands, of potential partners. This endless choice leads to a dangerous mindset. Why settle when I might find someone perfect? What if I commit and then realize I could have had someone better? What if I get bored and feel trapped? This mentality turns love into a never-ending shopping experience where people are constantly searching but never satisfied. The problem: there is no perfect person. Every relationship requires effort, patience, and sacrifice. But if people are constantly waiting for an ideal that doesn't exist, they will always feel unfulfilled. Instead of searching for perfection, the real challenge is learning how to build something meaningful with someone imperfect. Love as responsibility, the fear of being needed. Another reason modern relationships struggle is because many people fear responsibility. Love is not just about romance, it comes with emotional weight. It means being there for someone in their worst moments, sacrificing time and energy, and sometimes putting their needs before your own. In a culture that celebrates self-sufficiency, this level of emotional responsibility can feel overwhelming. Many people now see dependency as a weakness instead of a natural part of human connection. This fear creates emotional distance. People avoid deep love because they don't want to feel responsible for someone else's happiness. They pull away when things get too serious, afraid of being tied down. They keep relationships casual because deep commitment means losing their ability to walk away at any moment. But in reality, love and responsibility are not limitations. They are what make relationships meaningful. True freedom is not the ability to leave whenever you want. It's the ability to stay and build something real. The loneliness behind the pursuit of absolute freedom. Here's the ultimate irony. The people who fear commitment in the name of freedom often end up feeling more trapped than ever. Why? Because true freedom is not found in endless choices, but in deep connections. A life filled with temporary relationships and emotional distance often leads to a deep sense of emptiness. People who prioritize independence over intimacy eventually realize casual relationships don't fill the void of true connection. Being free to leave at any time means never having someone to rely on. Loneliness grows when there's no one who truly understands you. Real love does not take away your freedom. It expands it. It gives you a foundation to grow, a safe space to be yourself, and a connection that goes beyond temporary pleasure. The real question is, are we avoiding commitment because we truly want freedom, or because we're afraid of what love requires? Too many options, too little love. The illusion of infinite possibilities. We live in an era where romantic possibilities feel endless. Dating apps have turned love into a marketplace where a single swipe can introduce us to someone new in seconds. Social media exposes us to thousands of attractive, interesting people, making it seem like there's always a better option just waiting to be discovered. At first glance, this seems like a dream. With so many choices, finding love should be easier than ever. But in reality, the opposite has happened. The more options people have, the less satisfied they become. Instead of helping us find love, this excess of choice has led to decision paralysis, fear of commitment, and emotional detachment. But why? Why does having more choices make us feel less fulfilled? The ghosting epidemic. Why people are treated as disposable. One of the most damaging effects of unlimited options is that it has made people more replaceable than ever. In previous generations, relationships were built on effort, patience, and perseverance. Today, relationships are built on instant gratification, and if something isn't perfect, it's easier to just move on. This is why ghosting has become so common. People disappear from relationships without explanation, because it's easier to start over than to work through problems. They believe there's always someone better waiting for them. They don't feel emotionally invested in something that is so easily replaced. This mentality turns love into a revolving door, where people are constantly moving from one person to the next, never forming deep connections. The result? A generation of people who feel lonelier than ever, despite having more options than any generation before them. The anxiety of making the wrong choice. Another unexpected consequence of unlimited options is fear. When you have too many choices, making a decision becomes overwhelming. People today struggle with commitment because they are terrified of making the wrong choice. They constantly ask themselves, what if I settle and later regret it? What if I meet someone better after I commit? What if I choose the wrong person and miss out on something greater? This fear creates emotional paralysis. Instead of building something meaningful with the person in front of them, people hesitate, overanalyze, and keep searching, never fully investing in any relationship. They think that by keeping their options open, they're protecting themselves. But in reality, they're just preventing themselves from experiencing real love. How to escape the paradox and find real love? So how do we break free from this cycle? How do we find deep, meaningful love in a world that constantly tells us to keep looking for something better? The answer is intentionality. Instead of treating love like an endless shopping experience, we need to shift our mindset, quality over quantity. It's not about having unlimited options, but about choosing the right person and investing in them. Commitment over perfection. No relationship is flawless. True love is about working through imperfections, not running from them. Depth over surface-level attraction. Meaningful love isn't just about chemistry. It's about emotional connection, trust, and shared values. At the end of the day, love is not about having infinite choices. It's about choosing one person and building something real with them. The real question is, are we willing to stop searching for perfection and start creating real connection? When self-sufficiency kills intimacy, the rise of hyper-individualism. Why we fear dependence. Modern society glorifies independence. From a young age, we are told that true success means being completely self-sufficient, financially, emotionally, and socially. We are taught that relying on others is a sign of weakness, and that the ultimate goal is to be so independent that we never need anyone. At first, this seems empowering. After all, who wouldn't want to be strong and self-reliant? But this mindset comes at a cost. It kills intimacy. Deep relationships require interdependence, but today's world pushes us toward extreme self-sufficiency. As a result, many people avoid love altogether because they see it as a threat to their autonomy. They fear that intimacy will make them lose their personal freedom, make them emotionally vulnerable, force them to rely on someone else, which feels dangerous. But is true independence really the key to happiness? Or is it just another way society has taught us to fear love? The stigma of emotional dependency. Why needing someone is seen as weak. There was a time when love was seen as a natural human need. People understood that deep connections were essential for emotional well-being. But today, love is often seen as an optional luxury, something that's nice to have, but not necessary. This has led to a toxic mindset where people fear needing anyone. They convince themselves that, I don't need love, I'm fine on my own. Depending on someone makes me weak. I have to be happy by myself before I can be happy with someone else. While self-love is important, this extreme view of independence has made people emotionally isolated. The reality is, humans are wired for connection. Love is not a weakness, it's what gives life meaning. But because society equates emotional vulnerability with weakness, many people push love away before it even has a chance to grow. The fear of losing control. Why we struggle to open up. One of the biggest reasons people avoid deep relationships is fear of losing control. They worry that if they let someone in, they might get hurt, be abandoned, lose their sense of self. This fear leads to emotional walls. People keep their guard up, never allowing themselves to be fully known. They choose casual relationships over deep connections because it feels safer. They convince themselves that they're happier alone, but deep down, they feel a void they can't explain. The truth is, love always requires some level of risk. But in trying to protect themselves from pain, many people also block themselves from experiencing real joy. How to balance independence and deep love. So, how can we embrace love without feeling like we're sacrificing ourselves? The key is healthy interdependence, a balance between maintaining your individuality while still allowing yourself to need and be needed. Here's how to shift your mindset. Recognize that love is not weakness. Depending on someone doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. Stop seeing relationships as a loss of freedom. The right relationship doesn't take away your identity, it enhances it. Allow yourself to be vulnerable. Love requires openness. The more you let someone in, the deeper the connection becomes. Understand that true independence isn't about isolation. It's about having the ability to stand alone while also being able to lean on others when needed. At the end of the day, real strength is not about avoiding love. It's about embracing it without fear. The real question is, are we truly independent or just afraid of intimacy? How capitalism profits from loneliness, love for sale, how corporations turned romance into a business. Once upon a time, love was seen as something deeply personal, an emotional connection that grew naturally between two people. But in today's world, love is a multi-billion-dollar industry. From dating apps to self-help books, from matchmakers to love gurus, corporations have found a way to monetize loneliness. Every time someone feels unloved, there's a product promising to fix it. Think about it. Dating apps keep people swiping endlessly, turning love into an addictive game. Relationship coaches sell expensive courses on how to find the one. The wedding industry pressures couples into spending thousands on a single day. The modern love industry thrives on one key principle. If people were truly happy in their relationships, they wouldn't need to keep buying solutions. But what if the industry isn't designed to help people find love, but rather to keep them searching for it indefinitely? The dating app trap. Why finding love feels impossible. Dating apps promise to connect people like never before, but in reality, they function more like slot machines than matchmakers. The goal isn't to help users find love, it's to keep them hooked on the platform. Apps like Tinder, Bumble, and Hinge use psychological tricks to maximize engagement. Endless choices make people feel like there's always someone better out there. Short-term validation from matches and messages creates an addictive cycle. Paid features promise to improve your chances, but only if you keep spending. The result? People spend months or even years swiping without ever forming deep connections. Dating has become a transaction where attraction is reduced to profiles, algorithms, and superficial judgments. Ironically, the very apps that claim to help people find love might actually be making real relationships harder to build. Selling the dream. How media creates unrealistic love standards. Movies, TV shows, and social media all play a role in selling an illusion of love. From romantic comedies to Instagram couples, we are constantly bombarded with impossible standards. Society tells us love must be passionate, dramatic, and perfect. Your partner should always make you feel amazing. If a relationship has problems, it means it's not true love. These unrealistic ideals make real relationships feel disappointing. When normal challenges arise, misunderstandings, differences, or moments of boredom, people assume they must be with the wrong person. Meanwhile, companies profit from these insecurities by selling solutions, beauty products to make you more attractive, expensive gifts to prove your love, self-improvement courses to make you worthy of a relationship. But the truth is, love isn't a product you can buy. It's an experience you create. And the more we chase the fantasy, the harder it becomes to build something real. Breaking free, how to stop letting capitalism control your love life. So, how do we reclaim love from the corporations that profit from our loneliness? It starts with changing the way we see relationships. Here's how. Stop treating love like a product. Deep connections aren't something you find by swiping or paying for advice. They're something you build through time and effort. Detach from unrealistic expectations. Love isn't a fairy tale. It's a partnership that requires patience, understanding, and growth. Recognize when you're being manipulated. Many industries profit from your insecurities. Don't let them dictate your happiness. Focus on real connection, not just chemistry. Lasting love isn't about sparks and excitement. It's about mutual respect, trust, and shared values. At the end of the day, love shouldn't be a business. It should be a choice. The question is, are you chasing love, or are you just caught in the system that sells it? Lost or waiting to be found? As we reach the end of this journey, one thing becomes clear. Love isn't dead. It's just evolving. But whether it evolves into something deeper or becomes entirely superficial is up to us. We live in a world that encourages detachment, glorifies independence, and rewards instant gratification. We're taught to chase the next best thing instead of nurturing what we already have. Relationships have become transactions, and commitment is often seen as a limitation rather than a strength. But despite all of this, deep love is still possible. It exists in the rare moments where people choose connection over convenience, vulnerability over ego, and depth over surface-level attraction. The real question isn't whether deep love is dying, it's whether we're willing to fight for it. If we want meaningful relationships, we have to break free from modern dating traps and redefine love on our own terms. That means learning to embrace emotional depth even when it's uncomfortable, prioritizing authenticity over social validation, understanding that real love isn't always perfect, but it's always worth it. So, will love continue to fade into something shallow, fleeting, and disposable? Or will people start seeking something real, lasting, and profoundly human? The answer depends on you. Rewiring your mindset, how to build deep and authentic love. Escaping the superficial love trap starts with a mental shift. If you want deep, meaningful love, you must first learn to be comfortable with emotional discomfort. Love isn't always easy. It requires work, patience, and resilience. Embrace vulnerability. Real love means showing your flaws, fears, and emotions without fear of judgment. Develop self-awareness. Before expecting deep love from others, you need to understand your own needs, patterns, and emotional barriers. Most importantly, you must stop chasing the illusion of perfect love. Love is messy, unpredictable, and sometimes difficult. But that's what makes it real. Practical steps to find and sustain deep love. How do you break free from surface-level relationships and start building something real? Prioritize emotional connection over appearance or status. Stop focusing on what looks good and start seeking what feels right. Ask deeper questions. Instead of small talk, discuss dreams, fears, and personal growth. Be willing to have hard conversations. Growth comes from discomfort. Avoidance only leads to stagnation. Choose partners who value depth. Surround yourself with people who crave authenticity over convenience. The truth is, deep love still exists, but it requires a different mindset. The question is, are you willing to go beyond the surface? The future of love. Are deep relationships doomed, or can we save them? The rise of emotional disconnection. Why deep love is struggling. Look around, and you'll see a world where relationships are more accessible than ever, but less meaningful. Dating apps provide endless options, but few real connections. Social media creates an illusion of closeness, yet people feel lonelier than ever. Many people prioritize personal success over emotional connection, fearing that deep love will slow them down. As a result, love is becoming more of a transaction than an emotional bond. People trade relationships like stocks, always looking for something newer, better, more exciting. But in this pursuit of endless options, we risk losing something invaluable: real, lasting intimacy. Can deep love still survive in a superficial world? Despite all the challenges, deep love is not dead, it's just rare. The question is, can it survive in a world that values speed over depth? Yes, but only if people are willing to challenge modern dating norms. This means prioritizing emotional connection over instant attraction, choosing commitment over convenience, learning to work through difficulties instead of constantly starting over. Deep love requires effort, patience, and vulnerability. But in a world where people fear emotional pain, most would rather walk away than work through problems. If we don't change this mindset, the future of love will become even more detached, transactional, and disposable. The next generation's role. Will they break the cycle? Younger generations are growing up in a world where love is shaped by technology. AI-driven matchmaking, digital relationships, and VR dating are already becoming a reality. But will these advancements deepen connection or destroy it? It all depends on how people choose to use technology. If used correctly, it can help connect like-minded souls across the world. If misused, it can turn love into an even more shallow, gamified experience. The future of love depends on self-awareness. Will people continue treating relationships like products, or will they start prioritizing real, emotional depth? The path to restoring deep love. So, what can we do to save deep, meaningful relationships from extinction, reject superficiality, stop settling for connections that lack emotional substance, value depth over instant gratification? Good love takes time. It can't be rushed. Normalize vulnerability. Real love requires emotional exposure. Without it, relationships remain shallow. Teach the next generation that love is more than a swipe. If we don't redefine love now, the future will only become more disconnected. Deep love isn't gone. It's just waiting for those who seek it. The question is, will you be one of them? Why we settle for less, the fear of being alone, the loneliness epidemic, why we choose the wrong people. In a world more connected than ever, loneliness has become a silent epidemic. People fear solitude so much that they often settle for relationships that don't fulfill them. Think about it. How many people stay in unhappy relationships just to avoid being alone? How many people rush into love just because they feel pressured by time or society? How often do we mistake attachment for real emotional connection? The truth is, many relationships today are based on fear, not love. Fear of ending up alone, fear of not being good enough, fear of missing out on happiness. But when love is driven by fear, it's not love at all. It's just an escape. The social pressure to find love at any cost. From an early age, we are told that being in a relationship is a sign of success and stability. Movies, family expectations, and social norms all send the message, by this age, you should be married. If you're single, something must be wrong with you. Everyone else is in a relationship. Why aren't you? These pressures create deep insecurity, leading people to stay in toxic relationships just to avoid being single, force themselves to feel something for someone who isn't right for them, settle for partners who don't truly align with their values. When love becomes a checklist instead of a choice, people end up in relationships that drain them rather than fulfill them. The psychological trap. Why we accept less than we deserve. Fear of loneliness affects the brain in powerful ways. When someone feels unwanted or alone for too long, their self-worth starts to shrink. They start believing, maybe I don't deserve deep love. Maybe this is the best I can get. It's better to be with someone, even if they aren't right for me, than to be alone. This mindset leads to dangerous compromises. People ignore red flags in relationships just to feel accepted. They tolerate mistreatment, dishonesty, or emotional unavailability. They become dependent on their partner to feel worthy or valued. This cycle of self-doubt keeps people trapped in relationships they don't truly want, relationships they only keep because they're afraid of what happens if they let go. How to break free. Choosing love over fear. So how do you stop settling for less? It starts with understanding that being alone is not the enemy. Here's how to break free. Redefine what love means to you. Love isn't about avoiding loneliness. It's about finding someone who truly adds value to your life. Stop comparing your journey to others. Just because your friends or family are in relationships doesn't mean you have to rush into one. Learn to enjoy your own company. The better you become at being alone, the less likely you'll settle for something unworthy. Set real standards for love. Love should feel safe, deep, and mutual, never forced, one-sided, or based on fear. The truth. Being alone is better than being in the wrong relationship. A relationship should be a choice, not a necessity. The question is, are you with someone because you truly love them, or because you're just afraid of facing yourself? How to escape the superficial love trap, recognizing the illusion. Why most modern love is shallow. Superficial love is everywhere, quick, convenient, and deceptively fulfilling. It gives us temporary highs but lacks real depth. Think about it. People bond over aesthetics and status rather than shared values. Conversation stays surface level to avoid discomfort or vulnerability. Many relationships today rely on validation rather than deep emotional connection. Why? Because true intimacy requires effort and emotional risk. It demands self-awareness, patience, and a willingness to be vulnerable. But in a world obsessed with instant gratification, most people never develop these skills. Instead, they chase a version of love that looks good on the outside but feels empty on the inside. The cycle of emotional avoidance. Why we fear. Deep love. Deep love challenges us. It forces us to confront our insecurities, fears, and emotional baggage. But many people avoid this process because they fear being hurt or abandoned. They don't know how to handle real emotional intimacy. They've been conditioned to believe love should always be easy and effortless. Instead of facing these challenges, people choose relationships that feel safe, simple, and predictable. They engage in casual flings that require no emotional investment, shallow conversations that avoid deep topics, instant chemistry that fades as soon as real emotions enter the picture. This cycle prevents real connection. People mistake comfort for compatibility and avoid the very thing that leads to lasting love. Emotional depth.